Residents are now being allowed back into Lahaina, but the governor has warned them that they're going to see destruction like they have never seen in their lives. And from what we can see up here, he's telling the truth. Down there, there's the grim search for bodies happening right now, those that could not escape. And the residents of Lahaina believe that the death toll is going to be much higher.
That was part of our reporting in the skies over Maui just days after those deadly wildfires in Hawaii last August. This Friday marks 7 months since those deadly blazes ripped through the town of Lahaina, leaving a massive trail of destruction in their wake. The horrifying images now ingrained in our memories. You see them here, flames engulfing homes and tearing through businesses, residents forced to jump into the ocean or even a pool to escape. The aftermath, a chilling portrait of absolute devastation. Drone images capturing the charred remains of entire neighborhoods lost in the blaze. Cadaver dogs searching the ashes for remains. More than 100 people lost their lives, and nearly 7 months later, 2 people are still missing. We were on the ground in the days that followed, talking to members of the Lahaina community, struggling to come to terms with the destruction in front of them. I'll never forget their stories of survival and loss, but also being in the middle of a place that is paradise and at that time hell. Grief for those lost quickly turning to rage as Hawaiians asked why they weren't warned about the dangerous fire as it closed in. The state's emergency management administrator, Herman Andaya, stepping down days after the disaster after defending his decision not to sound alarms, which some believe could have saved dozens of lives. Now, months later, residents fighting to return to some sense of normal, but slowing tourism and an exploding housing crisis are still exasperating the fire's impact. Joining us tonight on Top Stories Spotlight is one of the leaders in the ongoing recovery efforts, maybe the most important, you could argue, Hawaii Governor Josh Green. He joins Top Story tonight from Hawaii. Governor, thanks for joining Top Story. I'm sorry to have to sort of put you through that because I know you're living with it every single day, and it is all so sad. I mean, just reading that copy and sort of reliving in my mind what we saw there. It's been 7 months. There's still been no clear timeline of what happened, and still no one has sort of taken ownership of this terrible thing that happened in Lahaina. 7 months later, do you know who to blame?
I don't place blame on any one group. We know that the fire started early in the morning, was put out, and then reignited and spread with extremely high winds. That's really what happened. The winds were 74 miles per hour, and so it spread the fire very quickly, faster than fire could even respond. We do have a pretty clear picture minute by minute of who was able to get out and who couldn't. The heroic work of the police and fire to the extent that they could save people. And we now know, of course, that there were 101 loved ones that we lost. So the final reports will take years, but the preliminary reports do show that the fire started when poles went down, and everyone did what they could in the moment to put the fires out. There were several fires that day, of course, and so the firefighters had to move from region to region on Maui to actually put other fires out.
They were stretched thin.
Tragedy, no doubt.
Governor,
Yes.
you mentioned the polls, and a lot of people have put blame on the power company there, Hawaiian Electric. There have been several lawsuits. Do you blame Hawaiian Electric? Do they hold some of the responsibility here?
Everyone's going to take a part of the responsibility, and that includes the energy company, that includes the state and those who owned land around there. So I actually proposed a way to begin to help people heal. That is what we call really a settlement fund, or the Maui Recovery Fund. So we put together $175 million to offer if people would like to take at least the beginnings of monies to help move on. But I'm sure there will be a lot of litigation, and that's appropriate.
I do want to ask you. I do want to ask you about that fund. And the way that we understand it works is that families can tap into these funds, but if they receive the funds, they agree not to sue some of the underwriters. And one of the underwriters is Hawaiian Electric. Do you think that's fair that families that need this aid, they need the support, get that money, but then they cannot further lawsuits if they lost loved ones or lost their homes?
Well, that's the nature of these kind of settlements. And I wouldn't put any pressure on anyone. If they want to wait and litigate, that's totally appropriate and okay. This is just so people can move on now rather than waiting 3 or 4 years. Some people ask me, do I think that the state is liable? I just say that we're all responsible. You know, we're responsible to help people get better and heal. Several people in the first few hours of us opening the fund, they jumped on it. We call it the One Ohana Fund. People should know the word Ohana means family here in Hawaii. there's nothing fair about losing a loved one or losing one's home. But we want people to recover. And then there's going to be, of course, settlements over land, because we had 3,991 buildings destroyed, and we had over 3,000 families that lost everything. So we want to take care of everyone. That is what I want to do as a governor. But there's a long road ahead of us.
Natural disasters and events like this teach people like you in your positions vulnerabilities, right? And I'm sure you've learned so much in this process. I don't ask this next question lightly, but could this same thing happen again? Could it happen tomorrow in Hawaii?
It could definitely happen again. It could happen in Hawaii. It could happen in most regions of our country and across our globe. Tomorrow or Friday, I'm going to be on Maui as we begin launching the new sensors that would help us see fires earlier. So there's technology being applied, and whatever technology is not available in time for the big fire season, which starts usually in May, I will have additional resources for fire spotters. That's something I'll ask for. There's a lot to do, but let me just say this to the planet. Everyone watching in your municipality, set up funds that can help you deal with the impacts of climate change, please. I'm not trying to make a political statement. I'm trying to say that we have a very dry climate here in Hawaii. That made it a lot more difficult because there were very thick grasses that were dried out, and they acted as fuel when the fire began. And winds that historically in our storms were much lighter were very heavy, and you need to be prepared. So you need to have resources so you can pay for extra firefighters. You can pay for people to rebuild their homes, or even for lost loved ones. We're contemplating that in the legislature right now, and I think you need a climate impact fee if you're in a vulnerable community.
Governor, you mentioned tourism. Hawaii runs on tourism. Early on, after the Lahaina fires, there were some high-profile residents who basically told tourists not to come. There is still some confusion with people all over the world whether they can come to Maui or not. Has Maui bounced back, and what's your message to those travelers?
The answer is yes, it's begun to bounce back. A month after the fires, I did announce that West Maui would be open with the exception of Lahaina. People should absolutely travel to Maui and to all the other islands because their visit here will help us heal. It helps us recover. Our economy is doing okay, but we used to generate about $13 million of revenue a day from the West Maui region alone. And those dollars pay for schools. We had to rebuild a new school very quickly. It's going to go towards rebuilding homes. And I think everyone wants to see our citizens recover. So please come to Hawaii. We love you very much. People have expressed so much aloha for us from across the country. It's really been extraordinary. But there should be no ambiguity here. People can absolutely travel to Hawaii and stay absolutely anywhere except for in the exact area where the fire occurred.
Governor, you know, early on I was there in Lahaina. There were some very testy news conferences. There were times where leaders like yourself and others got upset with reporters who were trying to get the story and trying to get information out to Lahaina residents. I understand in the immediate aftermath things are very confusing and you don't get the full picture yet. Is there anything you learned from that process and anything you regret in those days right after?
No, I have no regrets because bringing attention to our people's needs was important. I wish I could have shared more information in the moment, but you just didn't have all the answers. There was really quite a lot of chaos. You know, the fire itself, the embers burned for days and there were toxins in the air. It was difficult to get into the burn zone for quite some time. And I know people, they need to see certain things and they need to search for their loved ones. You know, there was a regret amongst many, which was we didn't know how many people we had lost for some time because we had a lot of reports of missing people. They didn't have the ability to communicate. So that fear is something that we always regret. But I'm grateful to people for covering this and for following this. And, you know, in Hawaii, we are pretty far from the mainland. So we're not used to sock you in the nose type questions. And I think that was a little bit of what was going on right as people were feeling a sense of trauma. But we appreciate you for keeping the spotlight here on Hawaii because Hawaii is very important to America. It's important geopolitically. It's important to people's idea of what paradise is. And so we owe it to everyone to be completely open and transparent.
Governor, we appreciate that message, and we appreciate you appearing on Top Story tonight. We promise you we will have you back on the show to tell us how Lahaina and the rest of Hawaii is doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.